Good evening and welcome. I'm James Madge. Now, the picture painted from the court's protest today show a police force clearly using excessive force against protesters. Police were captured in camera countless times, beating up separated members of the public who are fleeing, possibly after being cornered. Numerous injury cases have been reported tonight. Police have in the past lobbed tear gas into crowds in bids to disrupt these protests that are increasingly becoming graphic. Police are seen in one instance captured cornering women who were obviously seeking refuge in a women's toilet. The officers proceeded to beat the scared women and smoking them out. Their corner members of the public who were caught in the melee were not spared the unreasonable and excessive use of force by the police. Now, court supporters and their leaders for the third Monday turned out for protests in what they term pressure to kick out IEBC commissioners. Police insist they're using reasonable force and blame court protesters for forcing their hand. Court continues with the protest next week, Monday. Now, several people are nursing injuries they sustained today when anti-riot police dispersed crowds that threatened to storm IEBC offices at Anniversary Towers. Yet again, police lobbed tear gas canisters to break the demos called by court leaders to push for the ejection of IEBC commissioners. Here is our senior political reporter, Chris Tairu, who has followed the developments.
It was the third attempt that court principals and their supporters were making to forcefully occupy Anniversary Towers and eject the IEBC commissioners from office. And this time round, the script remained the same. First, a charged crowd started gathering along University Way as they chanted code slogans. One of the demonstrators stole the show after he turned up armed with his own dog to counter the police dogs. On the other hand, police remained ready, armed to the tooth in case of any eventuality. After 3 hours of a charged crowd, the court principals arrived in style after marching from Uhuru Park through the city center and finally at University Way. Just like the last demonstrations, the principal sat pensively on the tarmac, waiting to address the demonstrators before marching to Anniversary Towers. KANU Secretary General Nick Salat joined the demonstrations in a show of solidarity with the opposition cause. But no sooner had the Siaya Senator James Orengo addressed the crowds, all hell broke loose as police hurled tear gas canisters in the midst of the crowds, forcing everyone to scamper for safety. The principal's aides and security detail came in handy as they assisted them locate their vehicles amidst a thick smoke of tear gas that had engulfed the area. According to sources within the police force, police were forced to take an early precaution and disperse the demonstrators after receiving reports that pro-Jubilee demonstrators were also planning to counter the court supporters, hence avoid a confrontation between the two camps. And true to that, a group of pro-Jubilee demonstrators emerged minutes later, protesting against the use of tear gas to eject IEBC commissioners. However, police did not wait for them to advance their plans, as they were also tear gas to disperse. And the end result, some people sustained injuries from the fracas. Some of them were not so lucky, as they encountered the wrath of the police officers. As others were rushed to hospital where court principals visited them. The principals condemned the action, claiming that the police used excessive force to disperse the crowds. Raila Odinga's official car was not spared either, as it was damaged during the fracas. Personal properties were left strewed all over University Way. Businessmen who operate their business around University Way were left to count their losses after the fracas. The opposition CORD has already written to the president asking him for dialogue to settle the IEBC issue, and they have made it clear that the process of dialogue should start once the commissioners leave office. These are the scenes that will be witnessed every Monday until the government agrees to dialogue. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
Well, it almost passed off as yet another protest by the opposition demanding the ousting of IBC commissioners, but pictures coming out from the protest point to the proverbial responding to a mosquito bite with a hammer. Police have captured brutally beating protesters whose legs couldn't carry them fast enough. Take a look at this. All right, that's where we derive our question tonight. We want to ask you, based on those pictures, we ask you to comment on those pictures that you've seen tonight. Twitter at KTN News, at James Smart. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the police brutality seen on the pictures that we've broadcast for you tonight. We'd like to hear your thoughts. All right, now moving on, the county government of Nairobi will from tomorrow begin the demolition of 204 buildings in the city that have been declared as unsafe for human habitation. The demolitions come barely 2 weeks after the completion of rescue operations at the collapsed Huruma building, where 51 people were killed.
The cross of condemnation, a condemnation replicated across 204 buildings in the city, earmarked for demolition on Tuesday. 6 of them adjacent to the site of a recently collapsed building at Huruma, where 51 people were crushed to death a fortnight ago. But with barely hours to the demolition, a number of tenants are yet to vacate the buildings.
Landlord wamezima masimu, agent hawapatikani. So watakamilea ukaa sioni kama tapata usaidizi.
Sinafaa kupomolewa kwa sababu manake hata penye zimejengwa sio mahali panafaa. Nyumba ziko kwa muto na nyumba inajengwa nyumba refu kabisa.
58 of the hazardous buildings marked for demolition are in Huruma, 28 in Zimmerman, and 19 in South B. The demolitions had already started in Huruma, but were suspended for 7 days to allow tenants ample time to vacate.
Lack of housing is no reason why people should build buildings that will kill the very people that they are supposed to be housing.
Manyumba zimejaa, wengine wenzetu wamehamia manyumba zingine, wameenda wamepata hizo nyumba pia baada ya siku mbili imekuwa tena alama ya watu pia waame.
But even as the bulldozers make a comeback in Huruma, where the demolition will start, the prosecution of quacks behind the city's mushrooming traps of death is still in a limbo, as the blame game continues among the professional bodies tasked to check on the safety of buildings in the city.
We have to do materials test so that we establish whether was it the materials, was it combined with a lack of supervision and that kind of thing.
Any building that is coming up and is beyond 5 floors and has no lift, that is an illegal structure. Straight away, there's no doubt about it. They will not even get occupation certificate. It will not get approvals.
Now, a majority of the buildings behind me have been earmarked for demolition, but despite being just a short distance from the site where 51 people perished at a collapsed building here in Huruma, a majority of the tenants are yet to vacate the buildings, perhaps an indicator that the demolition exercise might just start with a forceful eviction of the tenants. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, in Nairobi.
All right, now 6 high-end luxury cars were today nabbed by the Kenya Revenue Authority enforcement officers in a sting operation aimed at weeding out tax cheats. A total of 124 vehicles have been recalled after it emerged that the owners may have evaded import duty.
In fact, I'm coming from a meeting with the
car vendors in several parts of Nairobi were today thrown into a state of shock and panic as the Kenya Revenue Authority officers made good their threat to pursue car dealers suspected to be selling unregistered motor vehicles.
This is the stock list of most of their vehicles.
उस email address पे भेजो please.
From the operation, 6 luxury cars were reported to have irregular documents, prompting the officers to seize the vehicles as further investigations are launched.
And then where are the keys for that vehicle? Which key?
For that one? For that one.
In the sting operation, officers confiscated keys for at least 4 Land Cruiser VX cars, 1 Land Cruiser TX and 1 Land Rover Discovery. This is one of the cars that the Kenya Revenue Authority has issued a seizure notice indicating that this particular vehicle does not have the required registration number plates, raising questions as to whether the car was duly registered by the authorities. From the list of 124 vehicles, KRA is estimated to have lost over 500 million shillings in import duty, a figure authorities say is extremely conservative, noting the high volume of imported cars Kenya handles per annum. On average, Kenya imports on an annual basis at least 100,000 vehicles into the market. At least 20,000 of the cars are brand new, with around 80,000 being second-hand. Car owners with number plates appearing in the list of the 124 cars published in the dailies by KRA are expected to present their respective units together with the original ownership, transfer and importation documents to the Commissioner of Investigation and Enforcement on Tuesday morning at the Nairobi Railway Club for verification. Many of the vehicles suspected to be part of the car syndicate comprise of sports utility vehicles and related luxury units. This caliber of cars fetch high profit margins for vendors and are considered fast-moving owing to their features and elegance.
Let me call the officer and confirm on this details.
KRA suspects that unscrupulous importers have not been paying taxes on many high-end luxury vehicles imported from Britain, Japan and other European countries that are sold to unsuspecting customers at car bazaars. Abiagina, KTN News.
All right, now the pilot who flew the chopper that was carrying the body of slain businessman Jacob Juma is likely to be charged over the incident in which a man dangerously hanged on the chopper last Friday. Bungoma County Commissioner Mali Mohammed is now accusing the pilot of landing the chopper in an undesignated location.
This was last Friday at Bungoma Posta Grounds when locals witnessed their first ever James Bond-like movie. It's an act that grabbed headlines as Sale Wanjala hung onto a chopper carrying the body of the late Jacob Juma as it flew away from the grounds. Wanjala, who is still admitted in hospital, is now chained on his bed, awaiting to be discharged from hospital and right into police cells ready for prosecution over his daredevil act.
Mimi nilionanga tu kizunguzungu. Sasa kitu chenye ilifanya ndio irudi wakati tu niliona, unajua vile ilikuwa ikienda hivi ilikuwa inaleta kizunguzungu, lakini vile sasa ilianza hivi nikaona inaelekea chini. Nikaangalia kabla haijafika chini heri niruke bure inazanifinya na hizo chuma zake.
Even as he waits to be prosecuted, locals are pleading with the authorities to let him free, claiming he's their hero.
Hata tukisema ashtakiwe na tayari kitendo kishatendeka, tutakuwa tujamsaidia. Tungemsaidia kwanza huyu jamaa tuone venye atapona, alafu baadaye yeye ndiye atakuwa anatuandikishia historia.
There is force of gravity, and if we can sustain all that praise until it comes down in such a safe situation, then he's a hero.
And in a new twist of events, the Bungoma County Commissioner Mali Mohammed is now pointing a finger at the chopper's pilot.
We want to advise pilots to make sure they land in designated areas where we will be able to hold our officers accountable, because there are specific officers who are deployed to guard that chopper, that aeroplane, that aircraft, until they are through with their business and they talk of back to where they came from. That is the regulation.
Sale Wanjala continues receiving treatment while still chained on a hospital bed. But the discussion here is whether Sale should be treated as a hero for his heroic act or a villain who should be prosecuted. Robert Wanyonyi, KTN News, in Bungoma.
All right, now the 8-day measles rubella vaccination campaign, spearheaded by the government, kicked off today in various parts of the country, with children aged 9 months to 14 years receiving the shot from health workers at various health centers. The government hopes to reach 19 million children in the campaign that will cost 2.1 billion shillings. The campaign comes at a time when a section of parents have expressed fears over the safety of the vaccines and professionalism of those administering it. The government has, however, insisted on children being vaccinated, as some county officials warn those who fail to do so will be prosecuted.
Because it's an injection, we cannot move from house to house. So we've announced to all of them that they go to the nearest health facility, whether government or private, where vaccination has been going on.
Umuhimu wake ni hiyo tu, kuzuilia waleta watoto walio chini ya miaka 14 na miezi 9 wapate chanjo.
All right, he is a leading global advocate for girls and women's health rights and well-being. Women Deliver brings together diverse voices and interests to drive progress, particularly in maternal, sexual and productive health. Here is Najma Ismail from Copenhagen in Denmark.
It is the first day of the Women Deliver Conference in Copenhagen, Denmark. This is a world-renowned convening that is focusing on the health, rights and well-being of women and girls. It is also focusing on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly economic empowerment, maternal health, gender equality, among so much more.
My name is Sunday Olawale Olaniran. I'm from Nigeria and I work for a non-governmental organization called Literacy, Education and Empowerment for Development in Nigeria. And what we do basically is to promote basic and functional literacy among the rural-based people, especially women. It's a difficult time for women in the world because we are seeing every day a lot of atrocities being committed against women, especially those living in the rural areas. So coming to Women Deliver Conference, I expect to learn some new things, new areas which women can work to empower themselves.
There are over 5,000 global leaders, donors and policymakers who will share their expertise and call for a better future for women and girls everywhere.
I'm hoping, together with my organization, to get ideas to how we can work to continue our work in my organization to improve life for women and girls in the world. Locally in Sweden at the moment, we're trying to help the Syrian immigrants coming into the country and help the women there who are qualified professional women to get into jobs as rapidly as possible.
Well, some of the discussions will include the U.S. abortion policy and how it is affecting the world. There will also be discussions on the unmet demand for family planning and the pressing issue that is affecting the African continent, that is a female genital mutilation, which is recognized internationally as one of the violations of human rights of girls and women. Najma Ismail, KTN News at the Women Deliver Conference in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Well, it almost passed off as yet another protest by the opposition demanding the ouster of IEBC commissioners. But pictures coming out tonight from that court protest show that proverbial police using excessive force. Take a look at this. Comment on the police brutality seen on the pictures from the protests. Tweet us at KTN News, at James Smart. I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the police force seen today at the court protests? Tweet us at KTN News or at James Smart. All right, now for the first time today, KANU Secretary General Nick Salat participated in the protest against IEBC. While it is no secret that KANU is not happy with the electoral body, especially after the recent Kericho by-election, KANU has not announced whether or not the Jogo Party intends to collaborate with the opposition. And tonight, KANU Secretary General Nick Salat is here to reveal everything. Stay tuned for that. This is Monday Night News. Don't go too far.
Well, many thanks for keeping it KTN News. My name is Abi Agina. Time to catch up with the latest from the business world. Liberty Pension Services, the independent pension fund administrator, has rebranded to N-Wealth Financial Services. The rebrand comes 5 years after the company's inception, with a plan to adopt a new strategy that will see it roll out more ICT-driven innovations, targeting the SME market with the underlying objective of enhancing pension coverage from 15% towards actually 30%. The firm is looking to craft innovative social security financial solutions that have created employment opportunities. The retirement benefits industry assets have grown tremendously from 50 billion shillings in 2000 to 814 billion shillings in 2015.
This is basically innovation through ICT platforms to enhance outreach in terms of coverage, which we believe is going to have a critical impact in our pensions industry. The highest pension earning pensioner within our pension scheme is getting around 350,000 per month with an income replacement ratio of 81%.
Well, moving on, Kenya has been urged to promote tea consumption, harmonize maximum residue levels for exports, reduce the price of production and taxation if it wants to increase the tea sector's total earnings. Despite a 23% increase in the earnings witnessed in 2015 to stand at 125.25 billion shillings from exports, up from 101.11 billion shillings recorded in 2014, the government and private sectors still needs to work together and add the industry's value addition. As a result, Kenya is set to host the 22nd session of the Food and Agricultural Organization Intergovernmental Group on Tea Conference. The conference will host 120 worldwide delegates who will discuss the changing tea preference trends.
That happen. It ends up being talk shows. Talk shows, you talk, present your proposals and everything else, and then nothing happens after that. I think it is time to bring out more on what happens after a conference, what happens after a workshop, what happens after engagements like this. We need to build a structure of monitoring the resolutions and some of the solutions which come through in those meetings.
Well, time now for the weekly edition of The Next Frontier. Fish farming has been the main source of livelihood for many Kenyans living along the coastal strip. But in the recent years, the amount of fish caught from the ocean has reduced drastically, posing a food security risk. On this week's episode of The Next Frontier, Philip Kitani introduces to us seaweed farming as an alternative farming method. Take a look.
On this week's episode of The Next Frontier, I'm in Kibuyuni, Kwale County, looking for a group of women who have taken to the sea for a new form of farming. From a distance, they look like fishermen at work, but on a closer examination, it turns out they are women working on ropes and nylon bags that hold some floating plants. These are the seaweed farmers of Kibuyuni, Kwale County. While many are scrambling for land to cultivate, this group has taken farming to the sea, and they have chosen the seaweed, a green and brown plant that is suspended on ropes and is spread over a distance at low tide.
Mkulima mmoja akapoa shamba lake, akapinua shamba lake bloki 6 tukawa sasa tupanda umani.
Most of these farmers are replanting the grass that was unhooked from the nylon rope by waves.
Twendeni kwa mashamba tukapandeni mwani kwa sababu ukipanda mwani wafaidika wapata pesa zikakusaidia.
She is among 50 members that acquired knowledge and skills on farming seaweed from Food and Agricultural Organization FAO.
Kumbe si tumekuwa umaskini, kumbe tuko na kitu ya kuweza kutusaidia mbeleni.
Every member was allocated a farm after researchers surveyed the marine area and confirmed it was viable for the project.
Ile miradi yetu midogo midogo iliyokwama pia tutakapopata hizo hela tutazidi kuisukuma mbele, ende mbele.
They visit their farms every 14 days to clean and tighten the ropes, replace those washed away, and the fallen seaweeds.
Tuliweza kuuza mauzo takriban tulipopata ufadhili na KCDP, tukauza tan 41, tukapata milioni 1.3 na bla bla.
At first, their efforts were rewarded with buyers coming from as far as Zanzibar in Tanzania. But this year has been a difficult year for these women, as they have not sold a single harvest. But despite all the teething problem that these farmers are going through at the moment, they insist that they are not going to give up on this kind of farming, as it is a high return venture than any other business. Over the years, communities living at the coastal part of Kenya have relied heavily on the ocean as a source of income, but overfishing has seen a serious depletion of fish in this ocean, forcing these communities to look for alternative sources of income, like this seaweed farming in Kibuyuni, Kwale County, that is changing lives. Philip Keitan for the Next Frontier.
Many thanks there, Philip Kitani, for that interesting feature on seaweed farming, hoping that a lot more farmers will take it up. Well, it's time now to take a look at the financial markets, and we begin with a look at how the dollar is trading, and this is how the money markets look like. The dollar is buying at 100.57, selling at 100.76. Quite stable sort of currency there coming in this particular week. Let's take a look at how the other markets performed as well. Well, that's just how the markets have closed, Uchumi being one of the biggest gainers. My name is Abi Agina. Let's do this tomorrow, same time, same place. Coming up next is the sports news.
And shifting gears to some football news now, coaches in the country will get a chance to learn football skills from coaches from English Premier League side Arsenal in a clinic that will commence on 23rd of May and run through to 28th of May at the Kenya School of Monetary Studies. The objectives for the camp will entail sharpening the skills for the coaching using global coaching standards, as well as developing a local football curriculum that enshrines an Arsenal Academy program for coaches.
Local talent has been key, and the aim of this camp, which will be fast for a very long time, because we'll be having 2 a year for the next 5 years. For this time, we decided to include the coaches, so that at least we can have some transfer of skills.
Our criteria for this initial selection was very simple, straight to the point. We wanted the youth coaches to get involved. Actually, this is the brief we got from our partners, that we want to start enhancing skills at the youth level, and the best way to do it is to have some kind of a skill transfer training.
Right, that's it. That does it for us on Monday Night News, the 16th of May 2016. Almost inundated by your comments on Twitter. You know how to reach us. Thank you very much for your company. Gotta love you and leave you. My name is James Smart. Let's do this all over again next week, Monday.